Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wilde, and welcome to the Spaces Between. I hope you guys are having just a fantastic Thursday. It's a little soggy here in the old Pacific Northwest. Um, it is, yeah, a little soggy, and as a result, the flu season is everywhere, and those cold bugs are flying. So I hope you're drinking your fluids, your hot teas, and doing what you got to do because, yeah, I am. Nah, absolutely. As you can hear in my voice, I am, yeah, we'll just leave it at that. I am. Um, I'm indulging in the hot teas. So, yes, actually, this is the lukewarm coffee because caffeine is life. So, anyways, so yes, welcome to the Spaces Between, where we talk about all things. And today we are talking about Yule because it is the Ides of December and Yule is fast approaching. That means it is almost December 21st, which is the first day of winter. That is the longest night of the year, the shortest day of the year. And it is when many celebrations arise around the world. And it is a day of significance for many. And for those of us within the pagan path, it is um, kind of a big deal, you know? It really is actually, because in the pagan world, often this means that it is a time to celebrate the transition between um, the the lowest point of the sun and the promise of its return, because we're beginning to feel or it's time to call the sun back, if you will, to call the blessings of the sun back, and so there's many traditions around that. A lot of them are like burning the Yule log, and that's where Yule log. Now, once upon a time, fireplaces were significantly larger than they are now, especially in the feast halls. I mean, they could put in a log like nobody's business. Think of it as man high, um, and they would burn all night, and then they would take the coals from those logs and they would go light the hearth fires of all the people in the village, and that would be a blessing for the coming year. And so there's a lot of traditions involved with that, and a lot of the traditions or the origins around Yule um, are Germanic in nature, and or the Germanic region, I should say, and um, there's actually a lot of culture that we observe around the world today that had a lot of its origin or a lot of its roots based in the mountains around Germany. Um, Even a lot of the Celtic origin story they've discovered originated within the Germanic fields, the Germanic mountains, and they migrated and were pushed out and then landed in the Irish Isles. And then when the Scandinavians then decided to go a Viking, they ended up traveling all over the place and spread culture again. And then um, when the Goths and Visigoths were pillaging and plundering and doing all their stuff, you know what? That happened also. Um, and yeah, it's um, as archaeology has really dived into um, the history and how it's all connected and the traveling paths and where things have begun and where they are connected to and from. It's really rather fascinating, especially as people have set down the trope and um, the mythos, if you will, that um, so many people had once upon a time that um, the history, the ancient history, or even just history in general, had to fit a specific narrative to meet, the theology or the assumed accepted mythos of the time. Like the world is flat, so only certain beliefs would be accepted, or giants couldn't possibly have ever lived, so anything over 6 feet tall is obviously not accepted, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of stuff out there that has been found and been like shoved into a box and buried in a basement because it just didn't fit into an accepted timeline. And now, as archaeology and anthropology has become so much more aware of the possibilities, and so much out there is counter to what has always been believed. For instance, Christopher Columbus was not the first white person to land in North America. For that's that's a big one. Uh, that's there's so much out there. Um, because the Vikings were here first. So, and there's just a lot. So I'm not going to go into a lot of that history because there's so much out there and I could just spend so much time on it. And today's only a short video because I have other things I have to get done today. And because, yeah, it is the season. So, yes. So, yes, very much a lot of the Yule celebration has dramatic roots in no matter how you look at it. It's very, very dramatic in nature. And the winter solstice is the festival of light and fire, and yeah, it starts off with it's a celebration of the darkest days, and it ends with the sun's return. And then with Norse mythology, it's linked to gods like Odin or the Wanderer, and then there's foods for leave out foods for like Sleipnir, and that's probably where a lot of like leave out the carrots and that kind of stuff. So that there's actually a lot of mythology where, or mythos where, Santa Claus is actually possibly Odin in disguise, and Sleipnir is actually the reindeer. Maybe, I don't know, but that's an interpretation. So yes, so yeah, that's why you leave the carrots out. But one of the very, very big major traditional symbols is a Yule log. So it's a large log. Often it's an oak or an evergreen, and it burns for like 12 days for good luck. And then the remnants are used to light fires for the next year. And you might see stories about that in like the Old Farmer's Almanac, or if you have a National Day calendar or something that pops up, they'll have little blurbs or whatever, and they'll say something about that. You may also see decor like holly or mistletoe, ivy, pine cones, a lot of evergreen type plants because those stay green throughout the year, and a lot of celebratory meals happen at this time of year. A lot of food and celebration. Now, traditional meals often have mead, and if you're back in the day, there was a lot of oath swearing, where you'd swear to your king, swear your fealty, that kind of thing, or your lord, your laird, and that kind of such. And then bonfires and candles. So fire is a big deal because you're fighting back or standing watch against the dark. And then today, with the neo-pagan movement, there's a lot of celebration again, and Yule is one of the major anchors in the Wheel of the Year, and which focuses on a lot of the nature cycle calendar type of holidays. And a lot of Yule traditions are now integrated into, of course, modern celebrations like Christmas and intention settings for the new year. So when we are setting oaths. Some of that has now become a tradition for setting intentions for the new year. And a lot of the simplification of practices is people just light candles around the home to banish the dark. Um, or Yule logs. Some of the Yule logs are real, wooden, or sometimes they're fake, or it's a candelabra to simulate the log. Hello, Kimber. I see you. And then sharing gifts. Sometimes the Yule log, by the way, is food. Um, I do make a beautiful pumpkin Yule log that is really fantastic. I may have to make that this year. It sounds really yummy. Mm. Hmm. I may. So, um, so with that swearing of oaths, for instance, with the Viking cultures, now the saga of Hervor and Heidrek is often pertains to the marriage of women, or and some of the poetic Edda. There's a lot of those oaths are talked about and how they're done. Um, because the oaths are sworn by beer. Svava says to his brother in stanza 33 in the Edda. Helgi says to his brother, "Grieve not, Hethin, for truth shall hold the words we both by beer have sworn." So basically, they swore an oath while holding a beer, and because that oath was sworn, and beer was used as the basis of the oath, part of the feasting and such. That was a big deal. If you have a chance, Jason Crawford is he has a YouTube a video series, and he has a lot of great information about the Poetic Eddas and Norse mythology and in general. And he just, if you have a chance to follow him, he's really great. I'll try to remember to put a link for him in the notes, because he really does have some really great information. He really goes technical and really deep dives, and it is often hard to follow. He really is, but there's a lot of good information there. So with Yule, it is technically the beginning of winter, is the way we mark it. And even though it's the shortest night of the year, it is marked as the descent into darkness. Even though daylight is coming, it's the beginning of the days getting longer, and it's just one of those things where we are beginning to see that transition. So, if you follow the story of the Holly King and the Oak King, basically the Oak King is, or the Holly King is beginning to wane at this particular point at Yule, and he's reached his pinnacle at Yule, and he will start to decrease and in strength after Yule, and that's why there's a lot of holly and celebration at Yule. And then there are things, and as he decreases in power over time, approaching spring, that's when the Oak King becomes the victor. There's a lot of times the Holly King and the Oak King are also considered Janus, because they are two faces of the same coin, same deity, if you will. So I like to light a fire or of some sort, or a bonfire. Sometimes it's just a little candle fire, depending on the energy that I have and the time that I have for Yule, just because it is just part of my representation of the way I practice. It also depends on the weather. So this year in the Pacific Northwest, it's been very, very soggy. Oddly, we don't have a lot of snow. We have a lot of mud. I wish it would snow. That stacks up a lot easier than water. If we had snow instead of rain, we'd probably have a couple feet of snow, because yes, it is very, very right now. But yeah, let's just leave it at that. I don't care for it. I'm not a mud person. Not at all. So, um, let's see. What am I trying to think? So, symbology for the Yule. Just a real quick rundown. Um, I may or may not try to be online for Yule. Give you guys a little bit on. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see. Just because life is kind of busy this time of year for many of us. Yule is kind of one of those big pagan holidays that often we just run out of time because even though as pagans we're practicing Yule and observing a rule, a lot of our families also practice the Christian holiday of Christmas, and so we get double whammied with both holidays. And so often we get two holidays. I don't have a problem with this. Yay, two holidays, but it means that we are often, excuse me, just kind of overwhelmed and have a lot going on. So, evergreens are a really big symbol for Yule. So that would be your holly, your evergreens, your ivies, that kind of thing. And it's a huge symbol of renewal. Um, Holly is a symbol of hope. Now, if you have pets, I don't recommend having holly in your home because it is often not good for your pets. So fake hope or fake holly is totally acceptable, and I understand. But holly is a very masculine element and is often used to decorate doors and windows, fireplaces. And because it is quite prickly, it is used to ward off evil spirits before they can enter a home or cause harm. That's why it's around the doors and the windows, etc. And they're very symbolic of the Holly King, of course. And the leaves, symbolic of the Holly King, and the red berries represent potency. So, and then let's see, mistletoe. Again, one of those toxic things. You don't want that around your pets or your kids. So if you got someone or something that likes to eat things off the ground, just be careful. We don't want them to eat things and die because that's bad. But so I have fake mistletoe for that reason. Because I have a goofy dog that will eat anything, and I have a goofy cat that will also eat anything. So, in our day and age, I feel that adaptations are 100% acceptable and that we should use them when necessary. So, mistletoe represents the female element and holds a lot of importance because it was used by the Druidic priests in special ceremonies around the winter solstice. And they believed that the green leaves represented the fertility of the mother goddess, and the white berries, the seeds of the forest god or the oak king. So they were coming together. So mistletoe is the the birthing, the inception, if you will, of the oak king. So druids would harvest the mistletoe from sacred oak trees with a golden scythe, and then maidens would then gather underneath to catch falling branches and prevent them from falling to the ground. Um, because if they did land on the ground, then the fertility would go back to the ground. So they were trying to catch the branches. And then the branches and sprigs were divided and distributed to be hung over doorways to protect against thunder, lightning, and other evils. And then mistletoe is also worn as an amulet for fertility or hung on the headboard. So, for those of you who are looking to conceive, um, even though it may be an old wives' tale or old mythology, a little bit of mistletoe over the bed doesn't hurt much, especially if you're just, looking to put it out there, right? Um, so now the Yule tree, again, one of those hugely important symbols in pagan traditions. So it represented the tree of life or the world tree um, among early pagans and even today. And in early days, it was decorated with gifts that people would leave for the gods, or wanted to either to give to the gods or wanted to receive from the gods. So Yes. And so it'd be adorned with natural ornaments such as pine cones and berries and other fruit, and then symbols that were sacred to the gods and goddesses. And so, in some traditions, garlands of popcorn or berries were strung around the tree so that visiting birds could feed off the tree as well. So, that's why um, see strings of popcorn or berries, like cranberries and such, would be strung around a tree. Um, because, yeah, well, it's pretty too. So then the custom of burning the Yule log began with Scandinavians who burned a huge log that was felled from an ash tree specifically to honor Thor. And then in the Celtic traditions, a continual hearth fire was kept to prevent spirits from entering the home. And then, in order for the fire to keep burning, a large oak tree was felled and then brought into the home, where the tree was placed trunk first into the hearth, and the last remnant set aside to burn with the next year's fire. So they would take this entirety of the tree, like, and some of those oak trees would grow really, really big, and um, they would put it in, and it would start burning. And as it burned, they would keep shoving it in, right? And then if something didn't burn, they would keep the remnants and they would burn it in the next year's fire. And it was also believed that the longer that the Yule log burned, the faster the sun would come back to warm the earth. So instead of, like, did you see Puxatawny Phil or not? It was like, did the Yule log burn long or did it burn fast? So candles are a way to have eternal flames within the home because they do symbolize light and the warmth of the sun and chase away evils and lure back the sun. Wreaths are traditional from ancient times. They symbolize the wheel of the year and the completion of another cycle. I personally believe that life is a cycle like the wheel. Um, so what has been will come again. So circles are very, very important to me. So wreaths are made of evergreens and adorned with cones and berries and hung as decorations throughout the home. And they're often given as gifts to symbolize the infinity of goodwill, friendship, and joyfulness. Now, bells were often rung during winter solstice to drive away uh, demons and negativity that might have surfaced during the dark time of the year. They were rung in the morning and as everyone began to wake to chase away the dark days and herald the warmer, brighter days that followed the solstice. Um, I say demons, but it's not so much demons as the bad energy. This demon is a modern word. Elves first became associated with Yule because the ancients knew that spirits that created the sun inhabited the land of elves, and so by including elves in Yule celebrations, the ancients believed that they were assuring the elves assistance in the coercion of the sun to return. So gingerbread was considered a specialty bread during this time, since ginger had not been available until the Crusaders brought it back during the 11th century. So it was kind of a new thing, real new thing. So, and there were strict laws regarding specialty breads during that time. So gingerbread was only allowed to be produced during the holidays, and that's why it became associated with winter and Yule. So yeah, it was a treat. It was a special thing. And then wassail. So if you've heard the song, "Here We Go, Wassail," da 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 da. Yeah, so wassail derives from the Old English word "weis hael," which means be well, or be hale, or be in good health. And it's a strong drink. Usually it's a mixture of ale, honey, and spices, or mulled apple cider. And so when the pagans went into the forest to fell the great oak for the Yule log, they would anoint the tree with the wassail and then bedeck them with wassail soaked cakes. And so the ritual of wassailing was born. And then at home, the wassail would be poured into a large bowl during feast time, and the host, when greeting his or her guests, would drink and wish them a wassail, or good health. And they would reply, "Drink heil," which means drink well, or drink and be well. So if someone says "Weisheil," it means good health, and your response is supposed to be drink heil, or means drink and be well. So it's a whole thing. And then caroling was also very popular, and it's when young children honored the winter solstice with songs. So they would go through the villages and sing door to door. And in return, the villagers would reward them with tokens and sweets and small gifts that symbolized food and prosperity given by the mother goddess to all of her children. And then, so the nature symbols: holly, oak, mistletoe, ivy, evergreens, laurel, bayberry, blessed thistle, frankincense, pine, sage, yellow cedar. And then food and drink of Yule: Yule log cake, gingerbread, fruits, berries, nuts, pork dishes, turkey, eggnog, ginger tea, spice cider, wassail. And then colors of Yule: red, which represents the waning holly king, and then green, which represents the waxing oak king, and then white represents the purity and hope of new light, and silver represents the moon, and then gold represents the sun. And then stones of Yule would be rubies, bloodstones, garnets, emeralds, and diamonds. And then activities during Yule: caroling, wassailing the trees, burning of the Yule log, decorating the Yule tree, exchanging of gifts, and then kissing under the mistletoe. So deities that are often associated with Yule would be the Great Mother and the Earth Goddess, so Gaia, for instance. And then Freya, Diana, Bonadea, Isis, Demeter. Other gods would be like Mabon, the sun god, the star, or the divine child, the oak king, the holly king, the green man, the red man, the horned one, Odin, Lu, Apollo, and Ra. A whole variety of them are associated with Yule, right? And then what Yule traditions and symbols that still appear in your celebrations? Well, I know a lot of them still do for me, because by golly, we have quite a few. And then and some that I didn't realize were pagan, um, that we've been doing for years and years. And so, if you have any that I missed that you would like me to talk about, or if you have some questions that about Yule, by all means, send me an email. It's Paisley Wilde, or I'm Paisley Wilde, excuse me. So my email is wildpaisley@gmail.com. And you can find me here on Rumble. You can find me, that's at Wild Paisley. You can find me at Wild Paisley at all sorts of places. That's my handle almost everywhere. Or you can find me on YouTube, the spaces between. And then, yeah, shoot me an email, give me a shout. Let me know if you have questions or need me to explain any particular thing. But yeah, just a quick shout today and quick go over Yule and some of the traditions. And I probably won't see you until later. So Yule is just coming right up. And I will talk to you later. I've got to scoot. I've got an appointment. So thank you for joining today. This is Space of the Wild and the spaces between. So merry meet and merry part and merry meet again. And I hope you guys have a safe and dry day, because it sure isn't here. Oh my goodness.